about looking at what happens in the brain when we go through interesting times, what is stress, and finally, what can we do in a situation like now, what we find ourselves in. Now, I'm fascinated by animal behavior, particularly the behavior of other mammals, because they have brains similar to ours as humans, but there's something profoundly different about our brain because no other species has evolved and developed to the extent that we have as human beings. But keep in mind that if you have a dog or a cat or any kind of pet at home, this is what they're feeling like. So a dog, is totally chilling, has no stress, is oblivious to what is happening around it, is oblivious to what might happen in the future, and the benefit, of course, is that the dog, the cat, and all of these other mammals are not stressed in the way that we human beings are currently, and in general, they process and perceive threat in a very different way. And in order to understand the difference, and therefore to understand in what way is the human brain unique, let's just look at the human brain for a moment. And this is obviously an oversimplification of the brain, but it's useful to think of our brain in the context of layers that have developed evolutionarily over time. So we could think of our brain as having three layers, which are evolutionarily speaking developed at different times. You have the brain stem, which is also, you can also think of that as the reptilian brain, which is controlling such processes as heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, all of these physiological things that is happening autonomously, and we don't have to do anything about it. We don't have to consciously control any of that part, and neither can we control that consciously. It's happening completely unconsciously. You then have the limbic system, which is the emotional brain for human beings. And the limbic system is similar in all mammals. So there's nothing unique in that sense about the human limbic system. In other words, there's nothing unique about the human emotional brain. So this part of the brain detects threat, it detects fear, it detects and therefore generates emotions such as anger and in fact stress. So stress is nothing but fear and threat being signaled at the level of the limbic system. Now keep in mind, as we ascend these layers, it becomes more conscious, that part of the brain, the function of that part of the brain, and you can exert more control over the higher centers of the brain, but higher centers of the brain do not control the lower centers of the brain. So the pathway from the limbic system up to the frontal cortex, think of that as a dial-up connection, and the pathway from the frontal cortex to the limbic system, that is the higher brain to the lower brain. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. From the lower brain to the higher brain, think of it as a broadband connection, right? So very strong connection. And from the higher brain to the lower brain, that's like a dial-up connection. It's slow. So the neomammalian cortex, which is the part of the brain for human beings that is very different from any other animal species and separates us from other animal species, is something that is very, very unique. So this neocortex in human beings is more developed than any other animal species, the highest part of our brain. And this part of the brain allows us, in fact obligates us, to leaving the present moment, to going out into the future, to going into the past, to think about which direction we are going, to then think about consequences of choices and decisions. It is the most powerful virtual reality machine as far as we know. And it is this part of the brain that has given us human beings our unique strength of being able to think about what is happening in the future, to then plan about what we want to do, to take steps to make our future a reality, and to therefore generate all kinds of possibilities in our minds so that we can navigate our life and take it in the direction that we want. It's remarkable. But it's also this part of the brain that causes us pain, that causes us suffering. You see, for other animal species, for all other animal species, to perceive threat, they have to be threatened in this very moment. So only if you attack a dog, if you hit a dog or shout at a cat or whatever, basically threaten it in this moment, then it will release hormones, stress hormones. It will get into what we call the fight, flight or freeze response, which is an amazing response of the brain, which is designed to evade the predator, to fight the predator, and either fight or flight is impossible. Then you get into a freeze mode because escape is not possible. So other animals, in order to generate the stress response, you have to threaten it in this moment. But because we have the neocortex and we are able to reach out into the future and pull out all of these possibilities from the future into the present moment, we can feel threat sitting in the present moment when nothing is threatening us in this moment because of possibilities in the future, whether they happen or not. The brain will think about it is as if we are being attacked in this very moment. The brain cannot differentiate. The stress part of the brain, the limbic system cannot differentiate whether the threat is perceived in the future or is it happening in the present. And the moment it signifies, it feels threat, it will release hormones by sending signals to the adrenal gland to release norepinephrine and epinephrine and cortisol, which are stress hormones, and they prepare the body for fight, flight, or freeze response. So have a look at this slide and you'll see what happens when we get into this kind of state of fight, flight, or freeze. So the body is designed so amazingly to do this, that when you're in the fight mode, your muscles get tight, your heart rate goes up, your blood starts clotting easier, you start becoming more what we call hyper-vigilant, so you're actually looking out at other possible threats. You're ready to either run away or fight, and all of this energy is being stored in the body because there is no obvious predator in this very moment. And because there's no obvious predator, many times this can, for human beings especially, get into a freeze situation where there's dissociation, which means disconnection from what is happening, numbness, feeling shut down, feeling helpless, and ultimately that can cause clinical depression with the symptoms of low mood, decreased energy, impaired concentration, impaired sleep, and so on and so forth. So you see, this is a very, evolutionarily speaking, this is the imperative for us that we have to survive. And our brain, because it has got the amazing ability of all kinds of possibilities, the sad news is that even though we are different than many animal species, we feel more threatened than other animal species because especially in situations where we cannot predict the future easily. And this stress, as I said, affects every part of the body, from head to toe. And I think what is topical to note is that it also suppresses the immune system, leading to illness and high levels of inflammation. It causes joint pain, lack of concentration, low energy, headaches, dizziness, panic, all of the other things, any organ system, and every organ system in the body is affected by stress. In fact, there's probably no disease that is not either influenced by stress or worsened by stress. Now, one of the key reasons why this time is so stressful for many people is because we do not know exactly what will happen. We don't have enough information because it's unprecedented, it is new, it's novel. We don't have enough information about, for example, when will the vaccine come out, how many people get affected, how is it going to impact my business, how is it going to hurt my health, etc., etc. There's uncertainty in all fields, as you know, all areas rather, as you know, right? There's economic uncertainty, there's uncertainty about health, there's social uncertainty, we're worried about the state of the world. All of this uncertainty, which means a future that our brain cannot predict, causes immense stress for the brain. Scientists have studied this and they've found that uncertainty is so stressful for human beings, for the human brain, that the human brain will prefer certain pain The human brain prefers certain pain to uncertainty whether or not there's pain. Meaning, so let me share this experiment because it was quite well designed. They took a group of people and made them play a video game where you have to overturn rocks, and underneath some of those rocks are snakes. Every time you overturn a rock and you see a snake, the experimenters made the game such that you get a shock on your hand, which is hard enough, or it's not life-threatening, but enough to make you feel pain. And as the participants are playing the game, they're also stress levels using sensors which can measure heart rate and various other measures, which is an index of stress. And they could also adjust the number of snakes under the rocks to make it either all rocks have snakes or 50% or whatever variable they wanted. What they found was when uncertainty was the highest, stress was the most. Stress was higher when there were snakes under 50% of the rocks compared to 100% of the rocks. So participants felt more stress when they could not predict whether they would get a shock or not, compared to if they knew they were going to get a shock. That's quite a remarkable result, and it's been proven many times that, and anecdotally even a morbid kind of observation is that people in metro, when they are, been sentenced to death, many of them actually commit suicide because the uncertainty of when that event will actually happen is so stressful for them. So we are living in an uncertain time, and the brain circuits are which always want certainty in the future, are not getting enough information. And when they're not getting enough information and the possibilities may not be consistent with what we want in the future, there is threat signaling going on in the brain that releases all the hormones and that results in stress. So what do we do? How do we find certainty during this time? Is that even possible to find certainty during this time? Before I get into sort of the mental aspect, I just want to make a quick note of the other pillars of health. So there are 4 pillars of health: exercise, sleep, nutrition, and positive mental outlook. There's plenty of data saying that exercise is very important for good mental health, and that you need at least 30 minutes of exercise per day. And if you get 30 minutes of exercise per day, that really boosts the ability of the brain to manage stress and decreases the stress signaling in the brain. Sleep is also obviously very important, and it is something that is affected quite a bit for many people during this time because the rhythms of your day can be altered. It's very important to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. We know that anything less than that causes a lot of problems and increases stress. Nutrition is also very, very important. We know that nutrition is not just about the body, it's also about the brain. And we have what's called a microbiome in the gut, which is the amount of the bacteria. And we need good bacteria in the gut in order to make neurochemicals and in order to have a good immune system. And therefore, in order to feed the good bacteria, we need good healthy food. So no sugars, no processed food, basically wholesome food, very, very important.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Doctor, but I think someone's audio is turned out. Please go ahead, sorry.
No problem at all. These are, this is one more feature of a changing time. And as a presenter, it is strange because I'm staring into a screen, and usually as when we present, we need to look at the audience, and even though it may be a monologue, there's still a sense of, how the words are being received. So I think, it is causing changes in multiple ways. But that's the key, right? That when things are changing, how do we adapt? And adaptation begins with the mind. I want to share the story. You might have heard it, but it's worth sort of recounting this ancient story from the Zen tradition about a samurai warrior who goes to a master and he says, "Master, what is heaven and what is hell?" And the master looks at him and he says, "You fool, you idiot, you brutish, loutish warrior, you don't have the good sense to even understand this. Don't waste your time on such questions." The samurai warrior gets enraged. He pulls out his sword and his eyes bulge, his muscles tense. He's about to strike at the master, and the master looks at him straight in the eye, and he says, "This is hell." Something clicks in the samurai's mind. He puts down the sword. He bows down before the master in humility, and his whole body relaxes, his face relaxes, and the master looks at him and he says, "This is heaven." It's actually quite a profound story because it underlines the fact that no matter what is happening around us, ultimately it's what is happening within us, in the state of our own mind, in the theater of our own mind, in our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions, our judgments, that determines the world we're living in, whether it's heaven or whether it's hell. And while for many times it seems as if there's a direct correlation between what is happening outside us and what we are feeling, we know that it really depends on how we think about things, what we believe, how we represent it in our minds, that determines whether that time is stressful for us or not, or we get what we get out of it or not. As the famous psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who, as you may know, he was a Jewish psychiatrist who was taken into a concentration camp during Nazi Germany. And he said famously, and by the way, you can imagine what happened to him. He was 37 years old, he had a roaring, he was doing well, had a good practice, he was married, and suddenly he's taken out from that existence into a concentration camp, and he wakes up every day not knowing whether it will be his last day or not. His wife is separated from him, he doesn't know whether she's alive or dead. His parents are in the concentration camp, he doesn't know whether they're alive or dead. And you would think that he would look around and say, listen, now I get it. If you are in a miserable circumstance, you are miserable. But instead, what he noticed as a psychiatrist was that people were different even in that most inhuman of all surroundings. He noticed how some prisoners were just more compassionate, more loving, more relaxed. He saw how some other prisoners were more unkind or more selfish or more self-absorbed. And he realized this, which he said eloquently here. He said, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Very powerful words. Of course, this is not new. We have the similar things in our own Indian culture. The famous dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna is nothing but this. The idea that no matter what is happening, can you focus on your internal world and let go of all that you cannot control. And this is also resonates in the famous Serenity Prayer. God grants me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So that is hard to do. It's hard to do because of the neural circuitry we have. The neural circuitry that is trying to change things that are either not in our control or that are so far into the future it may never happen. And so how do we actually make this a reality? How do we get more certainty within our mind when things around our mind are spinning all over the place? Again, we have our own tradition teaches us many techniques in order to master the mind. And the chief technique that we have learned in our traditions and in traditions across the world is to meditate. And this dog is telling the other dog the key to meditation is learning to stay. And the irony is, of course, dogs don't need to learn to meditate because they don't have the brain circuitry that is making their brain go into the future and past. We human beings have to learn how to meditate if we want to still the movements of the mind. If we don't learn to still the movements of the mind, then it goes wherever it wants to, generating stress hormones and causing a lot of grief. And for us who are leaders, and I know that all of you are leaders, there's a special role that leaders play. Because the brain is an open loop system for human beings. We know that the brain energies, emotions, non-verbal signals from people all around you. And that's the way we've been designed, because we've been designed to work as a tribe. And actually, in the tribe, the leader's emotions are more contagious than the follower's emotions. Emotions trickle down rather than going up. Not just trickle, actually. It almost multiplies and as it goes from leader to followers. And it's not about what we say, because our ancient neural circuits are not fooled by words, but they're actually sensing what a leader is feeling. It's very powerful that in the presence of someone, they can actually sense what you're feeling. So it becomes very important for the leader to connect with inner calm, even in times, especially in times of uncertainty, so that you can help people you're leading find the calm themselves, because they're sensing it from you as leaders. A lot of leaders are also quite unkind to themselves. I work with a lot of high achievers, and one of the singular characteristics of high achievers is they're often quite harsh with themselves. They push themselves a lot. They expect a lot from themselves. And while that is fine to expect a lot from yourself, we are living in difficult times, there's no denying that. And during this time, more than any other time, although this is true at any time in our life, it's so important to practice self-compassion. To not expect perfection from yourself, to be okay with imperfection, to care for yourself, to think about how you're speaking to yourself, and to have that relationship with yourself, be a good friend. Someone you support, you wouldn't criticize, you would nurture them, you would be kind to them. If we are not kind to ourselves, then it really, really increases the amount of internal conflict and strife and stress. So the two key things that we can do in terms of the mind are being kind to yourself and using meditation to come to the present moment. Once you're able to master the mind, then you can connect with so many things that can enhance your life even more. For example, the power of gratitude. To notice in this moment what you're grateful for, what you're thankful for, has been proven to be very transformative for body and mind. So gratitude improves the immune system, decreases blood pressure, decreases stress, improves mood, and is very, very healthy actually as an emotion. It's been called the mother of all good emotions. A leader is often the last word on the subject, in the sense the buck stops with the leader. And the leader in that sense is often alone, because everyone turns to you, asking for help, seeking support. And often the leader has nobody to turn to. Again, we look at people, high achievers who are in roles of leadership, often there is a sense of isolation, because the problems have to be shouldered by them and them alone ultimately. The buck stops with you. Or does it? Because what we know is that belief in a higher power, whether it exists or not, whatever our belief, if we can believe in a higher power, if we can have faith that a higher power will nurture us, will make sure that everything will go all right, everything will be fine. If we can surrender the burden of that which we cannot control to a higher power, it really eases the mind. And so, as Khalil Gibran says, it's an oasis in the heart which will never be reached by the caravan of reason. Faith goes beyond reason. There's no logic to it, but science does prove that belief in a higher power does somehow bring out the best in the individual, helps us feel less alone in that sense, helps you connect with the idea that you are not alone in whatever you're dealing with, and really alleviates the burdens of the weight of all the problems that a leader is often carrying. So these are some simple, perhaps simple, these are definitely strategies that you might have heard of. But if you're not practicing this now, then now is the time to begin practicing this. When times are tough, when there is uncertainty around us, it's the best time to practice finding certainty within us. And so, before we get into meditation, I just want to summarize what we need to do in order to transform this time of uncertainty into a time of certainty, peace, and relaxation. Lead a balanced life may not be possible for many of us during this time. But as much as possible, try to have some social connection, entertainment, along with work. As I said, nutrition, sleep, and exercise are absolutely paramount. So please make sure you're getting enough sleep. And I'll be happy to answer more questions about each of this when we wait for questions. I didn't mention this in my talk, but watching your thoughts and correcting cognitive distortions is important. Now, cognitive distortion is a term we use to describe thoughts that are not true but that can cause us pain. A typical kind of thought process is catastrophic thinking, where we look into the future and we think of worst case scenarios. And these thoughts come automatically in the mind if we're not careful. And if you meditate, you can notice your thoughts and then change your thoughts so that you change what these catastrophic thinking and negative thoughts into more balanced thinking. And we do that by examining the thoughts, looking at the evidence for and against the thought, and then changing the thought into something more balanced. And then finally, of course, meditation, and through meditation, connecting with compassion, gratitude, and staying in the present moment. Scientifically proven, meditation improves and boosts our immune system, our physical health, our mental health, and does a whole lot more for us. And so, so we're going to have a session of meditation. We'll just have a quick time check. It's 5:38. Anita, shall we break for questions and then I will do the meditation? Because after the meditation, often people don't like to talk very much.
So we'll take up questions now and then open up for meditation.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah. So this is Arvind here. As you already pointed out, while you're a leader, pretty much lonely at the top. So I've always found a lot of comfort in talking to a friend, maybe friends at times. So what is the role of friendship and sharing during these times?
That's a great question, Arvind. Friendship is extremely important at all times, and particularly during this time. I think, by the way, there are cultural differences. We know that in general, in East India and what we call collectivist societies, we tend to be more connected with people. We derive a lot of satisfaction from having our friends, not that other people don't in other cultures, but for collectivist societies like us, it's particularly important for us to connect with others. I think for leaders, it's so important to have friends who you can be vulnerable with and you can share whatever you want to say without being worried that, there are other kind of issues at stake. And it gives you a space to express yourself. There can be a lot of empathy being expressed mutually between you and friends. So absolutely, social contact, empathy, and connection are actually at the heart of, especially with the lockdown, that's very, very, very important. So absolutely, by all means, it's important to have. In fact, when we look at sort of what happened with the pandemic in Sierra Leone with Ebola, for example, what we saw is that after Ebola, there was a huge increase in the number of depression, anxiety, and suicide. And so one of the things that research found can help is actually having community support groups. And so for leaders and also for your organization, because see, we don't have enough therapists in this country. There are only 6,000 to 7,000 psychiatrists and about an equal number of psychologists in this entire country for 1.2 billion people. So we don't have the personal therapy. And research shows that having a community support network, like a network of friends who support each other during this time, can be life-saving actually, really save lives. So thanks for bringing that up. If you can engineer that, for example, in the organization, where you have peer support groups, that would help. And for leaders, absolutely, to have friends and peer support outside your workspace so that you can share openly is profoundly healing. By the way, as you know, it's not about finding a solution. Even as a therapist, most of the people I work with are smarter than me. It's not that I can solve your problem, but what we do as therapists, what we know helps, is to create an atmosphere, a space in our conversation where it is completely non-judgmental, completely accepting, And the training is such that we can help a person slowly get in touch with what is happening inside. And what we find is this, that if we speak about what we are feeling, share our feelings, even if there's no solution, the feeling actually gets better. Sharing actually reduces burden, there's no doubt about it. So thanks for bringing that up, it's very important.
Before we move on to the next question, can you stop the screen share? Because we would like to see more of you.
Oh, I see. You're not missing much. I have a face for radio, but nevertheless. Okay.
Thanks, Arvind. I'm going to move on to the next one. I see a question from Arvind Balaji. Go ahead, Arvind. Hello, Arvind? Yeah, Arvind, you can speak now.
Hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi, Arvind here. Many times in business, it's actually very good to plan for the worst case. In fact, that's what keeps us going. It helps us navigate all the opportunities and threats and keeps your options open. But that fail of thinking, well, good for business, good in sports, good in many other things. In your personal life, if you start doing that, it becomes very stressful. Because if you always plan for the worst case, it can be quite torturous, to be frank with you. I meditate very regularly for many years, and I've watched it and I've watched the thought. The problem is it's a habit. And so what helps you in business kind of hurts you in your personal life. Any ideas how to separate those two?
Well, I think even in business though, if you know, what you would do is plan and then you would sort of let it go, right? You would not sort of ruminate about it or think and overthink about it, right?
No, you don't. It's just scenario planning. So you keep all the options open and you have all the backup plans lined up. So that's fine on business. And it's impersonal, so you're not attached to it in that sense. But when it comes to family or health or kids or parents, then it tends to get a lot more personal. So that habitual ability to do that sometimes comes in the way, actually.
Yeah.
That's what I found.
And you feel like the meditation, tell me more what you said, helps, but habits are strong?
Yes, vasanas, right?
So you're saying your mind will still move despite you practicing.
You know it, and you know you just have to wait it out for it to go away. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
There. But I just wanted to know any thoughts on how to remove some of these vasanas.
Sure. I mean, in terms of worst case scenarios, I think as long as you're thinking of the worst case scenario of you're saying in business, now what is the analogy? I mean, what is the sort of, what is analogous in the personal life? What would it be to plan for the worst case when you say that it doesn't work in the personal life? Let me put it this way, okay? Existentially, an awareness and appreciation that our life is not forever is not a bad thing. The idea that we are having a transient experience is actually can be quite transformative as long as we are not ruminating about it. And I think the key thing though is, as you know, since you're a regular practitioner of meditation, the mind will always move. The mind will always go here and there. I mean, it will find periods of stillness, but in general, the neurology of our brain, it will not be still. It cannot. It's like a heart stopping beating. It's not going to happen. But this is the meta-awareness, what we call buddhi, or in psychology we call meta-awareness, which is, buddhi is the idea that no matter what is happening the rest of the mind, we have a calm and clear awareness from where we can watch the contents of the mind. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, meditation is about changing our relationship with our mind, right? So yeah, if we can connect from the place of that meta awareness, then the mind can pretty much do what it wants, and then we can decide what thoughts we want to attach to and what thoughts we don't want to attach to. And therefore, one can use the mind to think of worst case scenarios in business or any situation where you need to generate those possibilities, but allow it to come back to the present where that is not useful, or detach from that thinking rather where it's not useful. So I think while we have a distinction between personal life and professional life, the mind in terms of its mechanics is very similar. That as soon as something is important to us, and especially where we can't control it, and that's the key, right? Stress is a change in our life or a potential change in the future that could harm me and that I don't have control over. That's precisely the time the mind gets very active and starts thinking all kinds of things. And that's precisely the time where if you use your meta-awareness meditation and just watch the movement of the mind and then decide whether it's something that you have to connect, to be attached to or not attached.
No, I recognize that. It just takes a long time to deprogram sometimes. So I just wanted to know if there was anything I was missing in this. That's all. Nothing.
No, I think it's a question of practice more than anything else. And I feel, especially for maybe not in your case, but a lot of people do have a misconception about meditation where they feel that meditation should result in a still mind or a blanking out mind, or a mind that has no real passions. And I think that mythology of the enlightened being who is somehow above all every other human being is something I see a lot in our culture. And I actually, as a psychiatrist, I find that a bit difficult to stomach and comprehend, and I feel that defeats the purpose. The Buddha gets as angry as anyone else, and enlightenment doesn't mean we are, somebody is better. And I think that the point is it's as ordinary as it comes in a way. All it means is that I've changed the relationship with the mind so that the mind no longer leads me. So I think you're absolutely right what you're doing, and I would just continue to practice so that one is able to dismount the wild horse of the mind. Right? The classic metaphor is that normally for most of us, we are actually on this wild horse called the mind, but we don't actually know that we're on this horse called the mind. We just know that sometimes we feel good, sometimes we feel bad, sometimes the horse takes me in a good place, sometimes it takes me in a bad place. And the moment I start meditating, I realize, my first realization is that, oh my God, I am on this horse that is crazy. It's going all over the place. And then I keep meditating and I'm able to get off the horse. And even though the horse is still galloping all across the place, I'm sitting in my place watching the horse running around. And that fundamentally will change everything, because then I realize that I'm not my mind. And, actually in therapy, there's a huge, the West and the East have very different ideas. In psychiatry, for example, you look at the West, this whole idea from the East that you can have a different relationship with your own mind, that you are not your mind, that seems almost crazy to a purely Western trained psychiatrist. But I've seen in my work how when you bring it together, the cognitive therapy from the West, which says, change your thoughts in order to change how you feel, bring that together with the idea that you are not your thoughts. You are not your thoughts gives you the power actually to change your thoughts. Those who believe in their thoughts will actually fight very hard to defend their thoughts, and in therapy it becomes very hard to help people change, because we cling on to our to our beliefs, even when those beliefs are hurting us, So I find great power in the synergy between West and East. And so I think, Arvind, you're doing everything right. I think just continue the practice,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arvind. I see a lot of typed questions there. Maybe we should just move there. I will let you choose the ones that, it may even follow the sequence, but probably you could choose the ones that. No meditation.
Viktor Frankl speaks of existential inner vacuum. This feeling is pervasive now. Do you have a specific suggestion to find meaning at this time when we have constant uncertainty and despair? It's a very deep question, a very great question. You're absolutely right that it depends actually on the strata of society and what the challenges we're dealing with. As you might be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy construct, that we have a hierarchy of needs, and at a very basic level we want food, water, shelter, then we want security, love, and so on. And as you go higher, you want self-actualization. And I think that for people and for societies, as a society moves from deprivation to development to beyond, we start seeing more and more existential issues. And actually that's a much harder question to answer, meaning our lower needs are easier to answer. If a person is hungry, they know what will feel. If a person is hungry, they know what will fill their belly. But if a person is existentially empty, it's a much harder question to answer. What is going to fill my soul, in a sense? This is a spiritual exploration, and Maslow himself, actually, after years of study, and this is again interesting, that he said self-actualization, and his idea initially was that the ultimate goal then for existence and what will cure the existential vacuum is to become who you are finally, to actualize all your potential. Interestingly, before he died, he added one more layer right on top, and he called it self-transcendence, an idea that's from the East, which was that finally when you want to find peace of mind, you can only do that when you actually transcend yourself. And by that, meaning connecting with that which is the construct of the self. From the East, the self is a construct, right? So existential despair, by the way, is pervasive in the West, as you know. It is much more common than in India, although here now it is becoming more common as we evolve as a society. And the answer to existential despair, because these questions, why am I here? Why was I born? What is the meaning of my life? What is the point of everything? Those were the very questions that drove historically someone like Gautama Buddha into the forest and resulted in this kind of process of meditation. And from a Western perspective, all existential philosophers like Sartre and all these guys were profoundly depressed. And to read existential philosophies to feel even more despair, to be honest, they couldn't crack that problem. Because as long as we think about our life as one individual who is born and then who dies, and there's nothing after that, well, that's meaninglessness. There is meaninglessness. If we believe that is existence, it's very hard for people to find existential meaning without going beyond the self. And beyond the self means meditation, accessing a state of mind that is different from that with which we engage normally. So this question is very profound. The answer is actually in transcending the self and in connecting again with existence in every moment, where there is no reason except that we are fully alive in this moment. Reason, in a sense, is the logical, the prefrontal cortex asking for something in the future. Reason has nothing to do with what is happening now, right? It's always about where is this going? What's the point of this? What's the meaning of this? And the mind is a meaning-making machine. Our human brain, unlike other brains which I compared with, the prefrontal cortex, attempts to make meaning of everything. It's trying to figure out all the time. And therefore it's judging everything. And because it's judging everything, it's labeling all the perceptions that we are having. So when we talked about the inner world is constructed how? Firstly by perceptions. But right now we're sharing most of the perceptions. You might all be watching and listening to this, but every one of us has a different inner world, even though we're getting the same perceptions from outside. That's because the brain is doing different things for each of us, right? The narrative, the meaning, what is its relevance to me? Is this good, bad, or irrelevant to me? And as we're going to discover now in our meditation practice, the goal of meditation is to strip away all labels from the mind and to really see what reality is without the filters of the mind. What is it like to experience this moment without the past narrative interfering, without ideas of the future, without labels of good, bad, and irrelevant, with just pure reality? Because we can agree that reality is something that is objective, right? I mean, it has to be, if something is real, it means that we can all agree that this is what is happening. So therefore, if you subtract all of our biases, all of our labels, all of our desires, and look at what is happening, that is true reality. And in that true reality, when we can connect with reality, the miracle is that for most people, they find greater peace and greater relaxation without trying for it. So to live two parallel lives. One is the life that is the normal life in Indian psychology, we could call it samsara, which is just your everyday life. To live it the way we normally would live it, and from a to then engage fully in order to get all our, to meet our goals and have our ambitions realized, but also primarily to live the meditative way, which is reality without our desires, without our belief systems, without our labels, without our filters, and in a state that transcends the construct that we have of ourselves. If we can inhabit those two parallel states, that is liberation. And I found in my work, by the way, since we're talking about this, I actually started off as a conventional Western trained psychiatrist and spent a lot of time just doing straight up psychopharmacology or psychotherapy. And when I was in the US and then subsequently here, I found that had serious limitations. And in my own personal journey, I had by then, of course, meditated and was meditating a lot, and I had explored Vedanta, Upanishads, and so on. And I realized that is so powerful that it has so much utility in this field of psychotherapy. And yet there was a danger there, because when I went to ashrams and met a lot of people who are meditating, without using Western therapy, I saw that for many of them, meditation had become a defense mechanism. It had become a refuge. It had become an escape from reality. They had become, under the guise of spiritual detachment, less engaged and less passionate with life. They may not be as engaged with their work or their family and so on. And that, to me, as a psychiatrist, there's something wrong with that. I always say, it's easy to be the Buddha in the forest. We can all do that. We can all go to the forest and, find peace of mind. But can we be the Buddha in the city, in this insane world, where all kinds of stuff is happening, where we also have desires and we have stuff to do, and we have a duty to fulfill as the humans that we are? How do we do both? So I found dangers on both sides if you do only one. If you do only the Eastern meditation practice, there is a danger for a lot of people, if they don't examine their mind, to just start using that as a warm blanket that numbs them or that shields them from the everyday world. And because spiritual people will tell you that detachment's great, many people believe that's awesome. There is a difference between real spiritual detachment and numbness and dissociation. On the other hand, the purely Western model, where a person is going on thinking about themselves, their existence, their individual life, it results in meaninglessness. It results in the feeling that what's the point? Because the rational mind, if you ask these questions, that is the instinct of being a human being. As I said, no other animal species has even the potential or the capacity to ask these existential questions. They cannot. And because they cannot, they're not tormented like human beings who have to figure all this out. They're obligated to asking. As intelligent people, you will ask these questions. So I find personally that the two come together very well. That we have to look at our own minds, our individual mind. How were we created, conditioned by our family, our society? How were we shaped? What beliefs did we get over time? How did we come to be the adults that we are? Examining those beliefs takes a lot of courage, because none of us like change, actually, to be honest. The famous psychiatrist Carl Jung often said, people come to me with a problem, but they're implicitly saying, get rid of my problem without changing. And that's actually very true in therapy. When people realize they have to change, we all resist. The human mind resists. So bringing those two together is actually very synergistic. And actually, I think it's 6 o'clock. We have time, right? Vanita, take some more questions.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So the session is until 6:15. We can probably answer some of these. And
we can get into the meditation.
Yeah. So I'm letting you choose. So you can do.
Let's take this last question. What are the most important levels that we need to mainstream mental health in India? Can you ask this person to elaborate a bit? I'm not sure. What are the most important levels that we need to mainstream mental health in India? Meaning, how do we make mental health more mainstream in India? Is that the question? Right? Yes. Okay. Good question. Huge problem. It's a huge problem, and I'm really glad, by the way, that CIC is conducting this with people in society who have the ability to change society. You can really make a lot of difference in this area, and we need people like yourselves to get behind mental health. it's not an exaggeration. I know I'm biased because I'm a psychiatrist, but it's not an exaggeration to say that this is the single biggest problem we are going to face and we're already facing actually. And after the COVID-19 pandemic, we are going to see a huge wave of mental illness across the globe. We're going to see post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, OCD, depression, suicide, addictions, divorce, relationship issues. It's going to be huge. And our country has found itself in a very strange position, where we have become, where mental illness has become an epidemic, and yet we are still have so much shame and stigma and lack of resources in the society. You will not see this kind of situation, both the extent of mental illness plus the lack of resources plus stigma in any other country. In a report by Lancet a few months ago, they found that the leading cause of death for Indians between the ages of 15 to 39 is suicide. Can you imagine the leading cause of death for our country for people ages 15 to 39 is death by our own hand because of emotional problems? And by the way, that's underreported because suicide is underreported in this country. Which means that our youth who make up most of our country are more likely to die from suicide than anything else. And this is now. So in the next 5 years, it's going to get worse and worse. And we all have to everybody has to do whatever we can. And here are the multiple stakeholders. Government obviously has to play a role. Medical education has to change so that doctors are exposed to psychiatry during MBBS. The tragedy, I don't know if you know this, but the doctors during MBBS study no psychiatry. It was almost a joke 20 years ago when I became a psychiatrist. People commiserated with my parents saying, I'm sorry to hear your son is planning to become a psychiatrist. It's a sad day, So, a lot of stigma, not enough education, not enough doctors. We need to change that. There has to be, every family has to change their position in mental health because it's so common that every family either has or will have one member of their family who goes through significant emotional issues sometime in their life. Statistically a fact. There's nobody in a family of 4, at least one person will have a significant mental health issue sometime in their life. This is not the other. This is not something that's happening to somebody else. It's happening to all of us. For multiple reasons, from social change to pollution to dietary change, absence of nature, absence of sunlight, social media, isolation, aspiration, ambition, all kinds of factors are fueling this kind of epidemic of depression. So we need to leverage everything. If you're in a company, can you have employee assistance programs for your organization? If you're a policymaker, can you do something to increase education and resource allocation for mental health? If you're, if you're in family, can you support your family during times of emotional crisis and get them professional help? So we definitely need an engagement from all quarters of society to actually avert this epidemic of mental illness. Otherwise, our country is really going to face some tough times in the next few years. And by the way, a lot of mental illness doesn't come out as mental illness. In fact, most doesn't. Most will come out in the form of either physical illness, worsening diabetes. There's a link, by the way. Worsening diabetes, back pain, body pain, headaches, all kinds of distresses to general practitioners, or addictions, or violence like road rage or domestic violence, social unrest. This is the way in which an epidemic of mental illness expresses itself in society. So I'm so glad you asked this question. I do believe that the audience I'm speaking with has the power. And, I really hope that we can join together to start making a difference. So let's start with meditation.
Before that, could we probably just club 3 or 4 questions, or probably meditation is the answer to those questions as well?
Yeah, first 2 questions, which are how to do it, that's meditation.
Yeah. Also, being in the present and mindfulness, how do we practice meditation?
All of that.
So, these questions, I think, practically demonstrate through meditation. I'm just seeing if one more question can be taken.
Sure.
Could you please comment on how our lives may or should change in the context of mental state of leaders after we have emerged from the virus matter? That's Sriram.
Sorry, I'm not saying anything. Can you please comment on how our lives may or should change in the context of mental state after we have as leaders, how our lives may change. Okay. Shyam, thank you for your question. This largely depends on how long this is going to go on for, and the solutions that will emerge. The human brain has a capacity for adaptation. We are very good at adapting as a species, and of course, the danger is that we overlearn certain things. So, for example, after a prolonged period of social distancing, if people still don't, then social distancing may, in some form or the other, continue for a while before it goes away. People can have almost a post-traumatic stress disorder, where lessons from the traumatic event are carried on into the future even when there's no trauma. The key thing though, and what we will definitely see, and something as a leader, please keep in mind that your employees, your team is at a much higher rate of depression, anxiety, addictions, and physical illnesses in the course of this whole lockdown. And if uncertainty continues, that is a very significant risk. That may lead to relationship issues in the house. It may lead to physical illnesses. You may see more absenteeism. You may see more, interpersonal issues at work. And it's important as a leader to be sensitive to that and to get that person or those people help, professional help, therapy, counseling, and so on, or medical help if that is required. And again, to what I said earlier, for the leader to be very disciplined about their own minds. For the leader to really know that your emotional state, see, leaders are very strong in the sense, often the leaders are strong cognitively, but sometimes leaders can minimize the role of feelings. Because in the workplace, feelings are, not so much entertained in the world of business as such, but we are feeling human beings. Connect with it or not is irrelevant. As I showed you the brain morphology and neuroanatomy, the limbic system is very much part of our brain, sending constant signals. And by the way, just to tell you how profoundly it can impact us without us realizing it, in a very interesting study, they took people who had stress and showed them the faces of people with neutral faces, like no expression on neither positive nor negative. And people who were stressed out interpreted a neutral face as being critical or threatening or negative in some way. So it actually changes the way people perceive the world. And once a person perceives threat, well, it causes threat. And threat then signals more threat because of the open loop system of the brain. And very quickly, if we're not careful, threat can start accumulating within a team and within an organization. So sensitivity to the issue, taking care of one's own mental health, providing professional resources for employees, and recognizing in the months to come that this will play a role, and to keep an eye out on all of these things is actually very, very important. And meditation, of course, is one of the, I keep going back to that, because I haven't found a better way other than, sleep, exercise, diet, those three pillars stand, right? But in addition, meditation is almost, it should be made like part of our school curriculum, I feel. It's strange that, it's really strange that, I went to entire school, as you all did, right, without really learning about how to manage our mind, how to manage our feelings. I don't know what our schools are thinking about. I actually think that needs to change. We know as psychiatrists that depression starts early, actually, at 13, 14, 15. So we need to teach our students pretty early on how to manage the mind, and learning meditation is a very important skill. So I'm going to start the meditation session now, because we'll run out of time, and it's at 6:12. I think we should.
Sure. We can start. I think
for that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guide you, and I'm going to meditate with you. It's an inward process. So you don't have to. You can just bring your attention inwards. You don't have to look at the screen. Just hear my voice. And like all of us, I think, I'm sure you guys have, actually it would be nice someday to have a deeper conversation about this, to get a sense of what your life is like. But imagine just like all of us, you're in lockdown, right? In Chennai, you're at home, and you have to balance homework, housework, professional life, personal life. And so what you're really looking for is some space of relaxation where you have to stop, where you can stop thinking, stop trying to problem solve, just come into the moment. And that's what we're going to do right now. So make yourself comfortable. And gently closing your eyes, take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Taking your time, allowing yourself to breathe, letting go of all the air as you breathe out. Now allowing your breathing to return to its natural rhythms. Bring your attention to all the sounds around you. Notice and hear those sounds. Now your mind may label those sounds, might identify the sounds, might say this is a fan or whatever, or soft or loud. See if you can let go of all those labels and bring your attention fully to the sounds themselves. Hearing those sounds as if you're a newborn baby. There's no idea what is making those sounds, but is very curious about the sounds. The baby doesn't even know these are called sounds, so that it can sense it through the ears. That's all ideas. Notice the experience of the sounds themselves. Move your attention to your body and experience the sensations in your body, starting from your toes, slowly going all the way to the top of your head, taking your time as you experience all the sensations. Once again, there's no need to describe the sensations. Don't observe the sensations as if you're looking from the outside. Experience the sensations almost as if you have no words to describe them. You're experiencing the sensations, the non-verbal sensations themselves. Don't try to change anything. Don't try to make anything happen. There's no need to analyze anything. With full acceptance, no resistance, noticing and experiencing sensations in your body. Now move your attention to your breath. Don't try to breathe. Don't hold on to your breath. Just allow your body to breathe and experience your body breathing for you. Noticing the rising and falling of your abdomen. As the body breathes in, your abdomen goes outwards. As the body breathes out, abdomen falls. Place your attention on this movement of the abdomen. Experience the sensation of the movement and the sensation of air entering and leaving your body. Not trying to change anything. The key is to allow things to happen, to bring your attention fully here, and to notice where your mind is. It's perfectly natural for the mind to wander. All you have to do is notice if your mind goes away and bring it back, as many times as you need to, as gently as possible. Now, you're going to connect with some compassion for yourself and for others. Imagine you're breathing in love and compassion into your heart. Connect with these statements. May I be free from suffering. May I be well. May I be relaxed. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be free from suffering. May I be at peace. May I be happy. Just breathe some love and compassion into your heart. And breathe out love and compassion. Recalling people you love, your friends, your family. You can wish them the same. May you be free from suffering. May you be well. May you be happy. Continuing to breathe love and compassion. Maybe send it out to everybody, all of us. You say, may we be free from suffering. May we be happy. May we be relaxed. May we be well. May we be happy. Allow yourself to connect with compassion, peace, and love. Allow it to fill your body and mind. You can allow a gentle smile to come to your face if it feels right. And moving your attention to the contact between your body and the chair. Noticing the contact of air on the skin. Noticing any light shining through your eyelids. Mentally visualize the space around you. And slowly and gently open your eyes. Notice how you're feeling. Notice how your body feels. You can stretch if you like, take a deep breath. Notice how your mind feels. I hope you're feeling relaxed. You can certainly share your thoughts, your comments about how it was for you. Coming back, opening your eyes. So, how was it for you? Some of you, many of you seem to be meditating already, which is great. I think, right? Arvind's already meditating. So, compassion, staying in the present, gratitude, exercise, sleep and nutrition, social connection, all of this is truly important in today's time. So yes, some people got comments. Deepa says it was tough. Totally understand. By the way, for those of you who found it tough, please remember it's a practice and it's a skill. So you have to just keep practicing it and eventually it will really help. The key is not to get frustrated. Even if you're frustrated, watch the frustration. Whatever happens with the mind, there's always an awareness that can watch the mind, but normally we're not connected with that meta awareness. We're just locked into the mind. Feeling light, that's good. Usually I don't, that's why I took questions before the thing. Never wanted the meditation to end. Thank you, Bhat. Yeah, same here. Once I get into it, I can do this for a long time, you know. And by the way, what I find astounding after, you know, with meditation is that when it happens, relaxation was not created by us. We didn't try for this. It just happened because we were noticing what's happening right now. And that's all we need, you know. We drop everything and we're already relaxed.
Vanita?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bhat. Is Gopal around?
Yeah, I'm here, Vanita. My video is not working.
Okay, great.
Dr. Bhat, so much for this wonderful session. Not only was it perfect for the situation we are in today, but the manner in which you conducted it, at least for me, conveyed a lot of clarity, a lot of meaning, and also a lot of help in our own little search for peace that we are finding in this time. While meditating, I did come across Viktor Frankl's famous quote when he said that I have grasped the greatest secret that human belief, human thought, and human writings have to offer, and that the salvation of man.
Gopal, we lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, you're back again. Yes.
I was just saying, when I was meditating, I remembered Viktor Frankl's famous quotation that I have grasped the secret that human writing, poetry, and belief has taught, and that is the salvation of man is in love and through love. So I'm just hoping that one way we will come out of this is with the love of humanity. Thank you again, Dr. Bhat.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. You're absolutely right, Gopal, that love is transformative. We don't often talk about love in psychiatry for some reason, but I have found that love and fear are mutually exclusive. When you're afraid, it's hard to love. When you love, it's hard to be afraid. And so, love for ourselves, for those around us, for humanity, as you said, absolutely true. So thank you for this opportunity to address this, forum. And I want to thank Anita and all the organizers. I see one more question. I'll just answer that. How do you practice meditation regularly? I would recommend 10 to 15 minutes a day initially to start. I've actually done a lot of guided meditations on an app called Cupid. It's free to use, so you're welcome to try that. So there are lots of guided meditations out there. So just practice 10 to 15 minutes a day initially. And the ultimate goal, right, is for us to actually change our baseline. Stress is inevitable. I mean, every morning, tonight, I talk to a lot of people. The stress and I absorb, obviously, in our job, and I'm sure you do as well in your job, your careers, your work, as leaders. So stress is inevitable, but the question is, what is our baseline? When you keep getting stressed, stress becomes our baseline with occasional relaxation. We want to flip that around so that this is our baseline, and we occasionally get stressed. So thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure, and wish you well, stay safe, be healthy, and thank you once again.
Thank you, Dr. Bhat. I just see there's a clarification on the app name.
CureFit, CUREFIT, CureFit.
CureFit, yeah.
CURE, Cure.
Okay, CureFit. Okay,
Cure.
yeah.
So in that
Thank you. Right, and I also see a lovely comment there. Never wanted this to end, and thank you so much for this session. Thanks, lovely working with you on this. Thanks, everyone, and we hope to have you back at the next session. Thank you.